Hello sports fans, and welcome to this intro video to Bloodbowl. In this video, I'll give you an overview of the board game, I'll look at some of the basics of how you play, and I'll share some tips on how to get started with the core box. Bloodbowl crosses American football and murder. It's set in the Warhammer fantasy world of dwarfs, elves, orcs, undead, and much more. It's been a fan favourite for decades. In the game, you can focus on getting a ball to the end zone, or you can focus on causing casualties and worry about scoring later. Getting started with the game is super easy. You just need to get the core set, which has the rules, 2 teams, a board, dice, and everything you need. Although the teams are unpainted, they are coloured plastic, so you just need to assemble them and you're ready to play ball. The teams included are the Imperial Nobility and the Black Orcs. The Black Orcs are more focused on having a fight, but the Imperial Nobility are tough enough to hold their own and are also much better at playing the ball than the Orcs. You'll get 2 big guys, an Ogre for the Imperial Nobility and a Troll for the Black Orcs, as well as 2 star players, Griff Oberwald for the Imperial Nobility and Varric Gulchur for the Black Orcs. As the coach, you have 1 million gold to hire your players, so there can be a lot of variety within the teams. To help you get started, I have 2 recommended teams that both stick to the 1 million gold limit. The Black Orc team takes a Troll, while the Imperial Nobility doesn't take an Ogre, but the Nobility team should work out better that way. If you want, you could trade in 2 bodyguards for a lineman and an ogre. In addition, note that the Black Orc team has 12 players, but you can only field 11 at a time. Essentially, you've got a spare goblin in case one gets injured or eaten by the troll. Alright, let's have a quick look at how the game is played. This is the board, 26 squares long and 15 wide. It's divided into 2 halves, 1 for each team. The goal is to get a player with the ball in the other team's end zone. The sides of the board are referred to as wide zones. When setting up, you can have at most 2 players in each of your wide zones, and you must have 3 players on the central line, the line of scrimmage. The game starts with a coin flip to decide who is kicking and who is receiving at the start of turn 1. The kicking team sets up first, followed by the receiving team. Then the kicking team places the ball in the receiving team's half and rolls a scatter to see where it ends up. Turns go back and forth between the coaches as they try to get the ball into the end zone. Each turn, the coach activates players on their team one by one. They pick one action for that player to perform, and after that action is complete, move on to another player who has not yet acted that turn, and repeat until the turn ends. The most common action is for the player to move, but be careful, if they are next to an opposing player, they will also need to succeed at a dodge roll or fall over. A player can take the block action, tackling an opposing team player in a square next to them. Some actions can only be used once per turn, so you have to consider wisely which players will perform these actions. The first is Blitz, which allows you to combine the block and move actions. You can use your movement allowance before and after the block if you wish. Next is Pass. The player selects a target player and throws the ball to them. Longer throws are harder to succeed at. If the throw is successful, the target player will have to roll to catch the ball. You can take a move action before attempting the pass, but that player's activation ends after they throw the ball. In addition to the pass action, you can have the ball carrier hand off the ball to someone they're next to. Finally, once per turn, you can have a player foul an opposing player who is already down, but make sure you don't get spotted by the ref. If a player ever fails at an action, this causes a turnover, and the other coach gets their turn. This risk management, where each coach tries to get as much done during their turn while also trying to avoid a turnover, is core to the game, and the first thing you'll learn to do is get the easy stuff done first. It is a game of 2 halves, and each player gets 8 turns during each half. At the start of the second half, the player who was kicking at the start of the game is now receiving instead. Once the final whistle blows, you count how many touchdowns each side has, and one with the most touchdowns wins. Alright, that's pretty high level, but hopefully should give you a taste for what the game is like. Next step is to pick up the box, which honestly has everything you need to get going. You will need to assemble the minis to start playing. These are wonderful minis, but some of them, I'm looking at you Griff, are tricky to put together. Cut the parts off the sprue as cleanly as you can, and take time to clean up mold lines. The box does have 2 referee miniatures, but these are only used with some optional rules, so don't worry about building them yet. Just stick to making the 2 recommended teams and leave the rest for later. There are 2 cheat sheets in the box, one for the Imperial Nobility and one for the Black Orcs. The only real difference is the bottom of the last page, which has the stats and skills for each of your players. There is a ton of info on these sheets, but mostly they're just big tables. Focus on the team rosters, which are very handy to have to hand. When playing the game, it's important to keep track of which players have been activated. This is mentioned in the rulebook, but it's definitely worth mentioning again. After you activate one of your players, turn them around. During your opponent's turn, you can take the time to rotate them all back, ready for your next turn. This way, you'll always know if a player has been activated or not. It's also super important to keep track of the turns, so get in the habit of moving your turn counter first thing every turn. As turns are limited, it can result in situations where you try not score immediately. In this example, the Goblin has the ball and just needs to move one square to score a touchdown. Once he does though, the team's set up again with the Black Orcs on the defense. Maybe there are only 3 turns left in the game, and the Imperial ability could definitely score in those 3 turns. The best play in this case for the Black Orc coach is to not score, and instead bash some heads in while keeping the Gobbo safe. This can be incredibly frustrating for the other coach and might seem like bad sportsmanship, but it's pure Blood Bowl, and careful management of turns is a key skill for a successful coach. With teams built and ready, cheat sheet in hand, you're good to play. But actually placing your models on the pitch can seem a little daunting at first. There is a lot of theory behind formations, but for a new player, this can be quite challenging. So to speed things along, we've got 2 suggested formations for each team. One for when they're on the defense, and a second when they're on the offense. Typically, the offensive formation is going to put more on the front line because they get to go first and smash some faces. In the back of the formation, we have the players ready to pick up the ball wherever it lands. The defensive formation keeps the minimum required 3 players on a central line, then positions the rest of the team to make it as hard as possible for the opposing team to get the ball to the end zone. With all this in hand, you're ready to go. To take it to the next level, you can paint your miniatures. Easier said than done. In the kit, you'll also have templates, balls, team coins, and team markers. These can all be painted to add to the experience. And typically a black undercoat, a metallic dry brush, and some detail will get them all done nicely. And that's it from me. Next time we look at Blood Bowl, we'll be going outside the core box, looking at the various teams out there and some of the accessories available. Till then, check out Ben on the Bonehead podcast. This YouTube channel has hundreds of videos all about Blood Bowl, and it's a fantastic resource if you're looking to get deeper into the game.